Hey everybody, welcome back to the 110th episode of Taps and Patience. I'm AJ with Audacity Micro, here with Harrison of Precision Ingenuity. If my microphone sounds a little bit funny, that is because I'm recording from school, so I apologize for that. But that's just kind of how time and schedules and stuff works out. So next time I'll remember to bring my microphone with me.
You have to go back and get some more education.
Yep. Well, I'm dishing out the education here.
Dishing out the education. Good deal. How you liking it?
Oh, teaching? It's been great.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a lot of fun. For the first time ever, where'd it go? I must put it in my backpack. But I have a stack of papers to grade.
Oh, my. That's why I didn't give homework when I taught. I don't like grading.
It wasn't homework. We did like a practice quiz for the NIMS test. And so I had them take that today, and now I have to actually check them.
Gotcha. How busy you been outside of school?
Oh, fairly. School definitely destroys my schedule, where it's in terms of hours per week, I don't have that much, but I feel like I'm constantly just on the go from wake up, run around the shop, get in the car, run to school, do school, get home, maybe do a couple more minutes or maybe go straight to bed, wake back up, do it again. It's very, my days are just very packed. And all of my downtime is spent driving to school, basically.
Gotcha. Yeah, because it's an over an hour drive?
It should be an hour drive. Lately, I have had terrible luck on that drive, though. Last week, so it's an hour drive, and most of the time it is actually an hour. Last week, I had 6 different drives, one way or the other way, that took me over 2 hours.
Oh my,
it was just
is that just
so
traffic?
much time lost to driving. Traffic or weather or accidents or in one very annoying case, they closed the exit that I take with there was no warning, there was no signs until I got to the exit, and it was closed for construction. And because I was going from one interstate to the next interstate, the next exit off of that interstate was 12 miles away. So then I got to drive 12 miles in the wrong direction, get off the interstate, and then take back roads 12 miles, back to where I started.
Oh man, that's annoying.
It was very annoying. I was very angry at the wind, I guess. I don't know. I called my wife and yelled at the roads.
Yeah. That's the one thing I do not miss about my old job. One of the things is the long drive. It's about an hour every day, both ways. But you could have bad traffic sometimes, but thankfully it wasn't that often.
Yeah, I think it's just the roads. The route that I take is all fairly city-y interstate, and it's all right on the edge of capacity. So anything goes wrong, and it's a traffic jam. There's a car stopped at the side of the road, traffic jam. Someone gets pulled over, traffic jam.
Gotcha. Makes sense. That's too many people.
But in terms of job shop stuff, I've been fairly the amount of work I've done on job shop stuff, I would consider puttering any other week if it weren't also for teaching school. But
yikes. Well, I mean, I guess if you're doing the school, that's subsidizing your income, so it's not as big of a deal.
Yeah. School is enough to cover my living expenses. So as long as I'm still puttering, I'm fine.
Yeah. When I was teaching, it was not enough to cover it covered the utilities basically. If that. So it wasn't much. It was less than $100 a week.
Yeah. No, I get way more than that.
Yeah. You teach a lot more though too. I was only doing 3 hours a week. But they called it a 1 hour class. And so you got charged, they told me the hourly rate and I was like, oh, that's a really good hourly rate. And it's yeah, but your class only counts as 1 credit hour. So for 1 week, no matter how many hours you put in, you only get that 1 credit. I was like, well, that sucks. That's actually a horrible rate.
Yeah. Whereas I'm truly hourly, and like I'm gonna bill them for that hour, or I'm gonna bill them for the 25 minutes that I spend going through those uh, quiz results, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you have to clock in and
Also,
clock out?
I keep a note on my phone,
Oh, okay.
and then just once a week, or once every other week, at the end of every second week, I just email that off to my boss.
Gotcha.
Um, so remember, my students are prison inmates, and so they come down in a prison transport,
Mm-hmm.
and I I can't explain to you why something prison shenanigans. Um, they get kicked out the door early. They have to like leave by a certain time,
Mm-hmm.
and so they've been getting here like really early lately. And
Mm.
if I'm not here, they just sit in the van and wait. And like they can't get out to go to the bathroom or stretch their legs, and they have a fairly long drive. So I've
Yeah.
been making sure that I get here at the same time as them or before them, and so that's kind of also added to like some of my time commitment, because now I'm like it's supposed to be a 4-hour class, but really it's like 4.5 or 4 minutes or 4 hours 45 minutes every day.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't know, it's still like I'm still billing them for it, but
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's one group of people that I would not want to tick off. You got inmates that are learning how to use machine equipment. Like, you're working one day and you look around and they're making a shiv on the mill, and you go, "Yeah, probably shouldn't piss them off."
I bring them bribes. It's okay. I compensate them with food. They like me because I'm the bringer of food.
No, that's funny. Well, good. Anything? I guess because you've been doing so much school stuff, there's not probably much new in the shop. Are you going to send off your spindle anytime soon?
At some point. So the
At
other
some
day
point?
you told me that I wasn't allowed to buy anything new until I fix the spindle,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I'm gonna go with that.
Yeah.
Cash flow wise, right now I have a ton of money tied up in the big Xometry job, and
Mm-hmm.
Xometry has gone back on what they originally said, where they were supposed to pay me for every release, and they decided,
Ooh.
no, we're not going to do that. Our stock price is too low. I'm that part I made up. They didn't give me a justification. They were just
Yeah,
like,
they
nah,
just said no.
nope, sorry, we aren't gonna. We're gonna go back on our word and not pay you for each release. So I might be a little bit salty about that.
So
Um,
it's going to be a really big payday, but it's going to be way down the line, and you're going to have all that tied up into it.
yeah, I'll have
Oh
I don't
man.
know like $8,000 or $9,000 tied up in it by the time I'm done. So,
Ooh, that is
and I
tough,
probably already have 5K tied up now.
man. It's like you almost need to take other Xometry jobs just to survive that Xometry job.
It's pretty much what I have been doing. And I mean, again, school helps because, like, I don't know, I haven't taken any money out of the business for myself since before I started the class.
Yeah,
So it's not
that's
it's not a
helpful.
huge deal. I'm just
Yeah,
subsidizing Xometry with uh, inmate educational funds.
I can cut you some slack then on not sending your spindle in, because I mean if you've got cash flow issues because Xometry's being difficult, then I can understand that.
To be
Um,
fair, I did buy the 3D printer, and that was 80% of the value of the spindle. But that
yeah,
was also before I knew that Xometry was gonna stiff me on this one.
yeah, yeah. Um, the biggest thing is that machine is very capable, and I don't want you to favor the Tormach simply because you don't want to use the Haas because of the spindle.
Yeah,
Because
which I
then
do.
you have yeah, because then you basically have one machine, and it's not that both machines don't work. It's that I don't enjoy using the Haas, so I'm only going to use the Tormach. So essentially, you're back down to a one machine shop with an expensive paperweight you're making monthly payments on.
Yep.
So
Uh,
getting it back up and running would be good.
though speaking of avoiding using the Haas, I was thinking about for this new job, just running it all at school and coming in early, like waking up, driving to school, and doing it on the VFs here.
Oh yeah, why not? What do they care if you do that?
No, it was actually pitched to me as like a a benefit of working here. They're like, you can use our machines for whatever you want, and we don't care.
Yeah, because I did that back whenever I was teaching. I used the mini mill to run a couple jobs. I didn't do it very often, just because they didn't have a whole lot of tooling. So I would have to, anytime I did it, I would have to bring all the tooling. I'd have to take all the tools out of the machine because it only had 10 tools. I'd have to set everything up, touch everything off, and then when I was done, I'd have to pull everything back out. And so it was just a lot of work, to do all that.
That's that and the distance from my home have been the two things that have made me hesitant.
Yeah. Do they have a lot of tool holders? And do you have a storage area where you could separate your stuff out? Because what I would do is, because it's a little bit more of an established shop, if you have extra tool holders lying around that you can set up that job and then keep those tool holders offline in a staff area, where you can just grab them, throw them into a machine, and then run the job. Because I don't mind leaving the vise set up or anything like that, because um, that's not as big of a deal. But keeping the tools out of the machines whenever you're not around and then having a safe place to store them, preferably set up, would make that process a lot better.
Well, one thing I do have going for me is right now and for the foreseeable future, I am the only person using these machines.
Okay.
And so I could
then
just
you could even leave everything set up.
leave it set up. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
that's not as big a deal.
the cycle time is actually faster on my Tormach. Because these machines, one, they do not have high speed machining, and two, they're just, they're Cat 40s. The tool changes are a little bit slower. They're a little bit more clunky.
Lower RPMs.
Lower RPM, and it's pretty close. But the Tormach is just a little bit faster. But I could set up, if I really wanted to, I could set up 3 VF2s and 3 mini mills.
Yeah.
And
yeah, you're not going to beat that.
No.
Do they have the high speed machining tryouts on those machines?
I know the machine we use the most, it's all used. I haven't checked the other 5 machines.
Because that was a feature that I would use some on the mini mill, is the tryout. I accidentally left it on for a while, and some of the students used a bunch of it. And I try to save it for any time there's like ball milling or surfacing, because that's where it really makes a big difference. And so like even when I was running my own stuff, I wouldn't turn it on unless it made a big difference in the cycle time. Mm-hmm. Just to kind of save as much of that time as I could.
Yeah, most of the material removal on these parts is relatively straightforward. It's not a lot of little, tricoidals.
And when you do heavy smoothing
slots or whatever,
when you do heavy smoothing, it makes a huge difference on cycle time without high speed machining. Yep. Which was another thing that I would do. I didn't worry about it on my stuff, but when I started using the schools, I would apply heavy smoothing to all the students' programs, and it made a huge difference in cycle time.
Yep, that's what I was thinking about doing. And I'll probably still keep the Tormach set up and running some of these, but yeah, it'll be hard to beat. Probably. Realistically, I'd probably set up 2 machines and be running 2 at the same time.
Could you do? Is the op 1, 2, and 3 fairly consistent between them, or is one cycle longer than the other?
Ops 1 and 2 are pretty well balanced. Op 3 is quick.
Okay. Yeah, because then you could flow it between machines.
Yeah. Op 1 on one machine and then op 2 and 3 on another would probably be the way to go.
Yeah. Yep. That'd be good.
So I might think about setting that up tomorrow. I'll need to run the saw a bunch and get parts cut because the saw here sucks.
Mm-hmm.
That is one thing that my shop has better. I have tried. I cannot figure out how to change the blade on this sucker without like
Oh,
disassembling half of the saw.
is it an auto saw or is it a just like a Granger saw?
No, it's just a normal horizontal bandsaw. It's a pretty big one. Um, but I cannot figure out how to replace the blade without taking off the one of the wheels.
Interesting.
Yeah. I may go ask the guys at the Haas HFO if they know anything,
Mm-hmm.
but
Have you tried
I could
looking it
just be
up
dumb.
online?
No, I haven't
Have you
Googled
tried
it
look?
yet.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't even
I'd
tell you
probably
what
start
brand
there.
that saw is off the top of my head, but I should do that.
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be something obvious I'm missing.
Yeah. Fair enough.
So what's going on in Harrison Land?
Oh, we are still extremely busy. We have not slowed down since November, and
I'm not surprised.
it's we got within. I think we were less than 10 grand away from making what we made our first year in a month. Um, so we've been hustling like crazy, trying to get stuff out the door. Um, and right now, the problem we're running into is Weston is stuck in the office a lot more than usual. Because we're trying to get Pro Shop implemented, and he's kind of in charge of that. So he's got a whole lot of meetings and learning how to do this, and then going through the process of getting everything set up. And so, and we've been having a lot of conversations because we're going to have to, me and Weston have, because we're either going to have to hire someone or get some automation in. Because this high volume job, while it is amazing, and basically, while we're running this job on 2 machines, we're guaranteed to hit our weekly goal with this job until we catch up, or basically until we catch up to where we're supposed to be on it, production wise. But the problem with that is that both machines can run for about 30 minutes unattended, but as soon as they do need attention, it's about 5 minutes to switch everything over. And so that means that you got 5 minutes on one machine, 5 minutes on the other. And so that only leaves you with about 20 minutes to actually work on something.
Yeah.
And then there's other stuff that can be going on in between that because we tumble them and then we do some inspection. And so once every hour and a half, we fill up a tray of parts. And so we have to go do that, which is another 10 to 15 minutes. With basically, by the time you get done with that, one of the other machines is done. And so with both machines running, you have like 3 20-minute windows that you can go do something, and then you filled up another tray. And so we're actually probably leaning towards an employee before automation now, just because of this one job. And yeah, that'd be nice to have.
Am I allowed to say I told you so?
Yeah, you're allowed to tell me that.
I told you so.
So, but this is the perfect type of job or a situation to bring someone in to just keep all that stuff going and start training. We actually had a guy stop in who works at a different machine shop in the area, and was wanting to know if we were hiring. We told him not yet, but probably pretty soon.
My class ends April 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
You guys should have me up there for like 3 days. I will play employee. You guys can try out your systems at no risk. We can help write procedures. You can get a taste of, you know, bossing someone around at, no cost.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll like record a shop tour and some YouTube videos and stuff while we're up there too.
Yeah, we could probably do that. Sounds like fun.
Yeah, I think
I
would learn a lot.
I'll check with Weston on that. Huh?
Yeah, I think I would learn a lot working with you guys, and I can be a guinea pig.
Yeah, that'd be fun. We'll put you to work.
Sounds good.
But other than that, let's see what else. We've been getting, I think, over 90% spindle uptime on the new UMC.
Nice. During the 8-hour day, right?
Yeah, well, when it's powered on. If it's powered on, we're getting a 90% spindle uptime.
Okay.
Or better.
How are you measuring that? Just looking at like number of cycles run, or
looking at power on time and spindle on time.
Okay.
And comparing them. So, it's not an exact science, but I've just checked it a couple weeks at a time, and like I'm just estimating it because when we got the machine, it had a lot of power on time from the factory. And so I'm just trying to, I don't know the exact numbers, but I know it started off at like 60%. And if you, by the hard numbers, and then after after a week or two of running, and now it's over 80%. So I'm guessing it's in the high 90s. It is in the 90s for sure, because it's still going up.
Can't you just hit like origin and reset those timers? Like do that every morning?
You could. I'd have to check. But I also like knowing how many total hours we put on everything. So
that's fair.
Which is the main reason I haven't done it. But as we get, ProShop implemented, it has a lot of features that we can track that kind of stuff over time. So like we could take a reading of all the numbers once a week, and then have a historic trend over time.
That'd be cool. You could also do like the chatter route and have that stuff, automatically.
Yeah, automatically. That's all stuff I would like to do over time. But as Weston put it, we've never made, the business has never made more money than it is currently, but we're also more broke than we've ever been.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get our spending under control and kind of get our feet back underneath us financially, which is probably the main reason we haven't hired anyone yet. Because basically, we're kind of in a financial bind because we got the new machine, and then the customer had some problems with the parts that were not on us, and so we're kind of behind what we were supposed to have done and made. And then we had a lot of large bills that all came due at the same time because of the new machine and getting stuff ready for the shop open house. We basically spent a whole lot of money on the shop in a very short period of time, and our cash flow didn't start coming in like it was supposed to, until a month later. And so all of our reserve cash is basically gone, which is why it's nice because we have, the largest net 30 we've ever seen. But we're also have no cash.
Yeah. Could you and Weston run a split shift where you come in at 8 and he comes in at noon, and that way you get an extra 4 hours of machine time every day?
We potentially could, but the problem is not parts going out the door. Right now the problem is it's all net 30. So we've already done a ton of work. And to be fair, we're in, what week is it of the year? Is it the 7th or 8th week? Or it might be even longer than that.
Well, it's 2 months and a bit.
Yeah, a few months and a bit. So
9 weeks, maybe.
Yeah, I think we're on week 11 or 12. So out of that, I think we've only missed our goal of like revenue coming in per week, like three or 4 weeks of the year, which compared to historically, the beginning of the year is significantly worse. We're way ahead of where we've been historically at this point of gross revenue coming in. But we've also spent more historically than we've ever spent before. So double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Other than that, I'm trying to think of what else is going on. It's just been grinding out week after week, and it's hard to think of like individual things whenever you're just running around 100 miles an hour every day. I'd like to do some Xometry work again, just because I don't want to lose them as like a provider. We haven't done anything with them for 9 months at least.
I mean, you could probably do a job or two with them, but at this point, like, I think for you guys, Xometry would be last resort. Like, our first, second, and third largest customers just went bankrupt, kind of stuff.
Yes, but I don't want to get kicked off the network, because then if I don't do anything within a certain amount of time, we'll get kicked off the network. They've already reached out once trying to get us to take some work, and I talked to someone else that happened to, and they'll reach out maybe 1 or 2 more times, and then we'll get kicked off. So we really need to take some work. But we've been
I'm still angry at Xometry, so I'm trying to, accelerate my getting away from them.
Yeah. Well, I want to be away from them, but I don't want to get rid of them.
Yeah. Which is where you should be. It's good to have them in your back pocket, but
yeah. And so, yeah. I mean, I want to keep getting the work like we've been getting of this large volume work. I absolutely love this large volume work from a financial standpoint. We also we've also had to spend a bunch of money because of the tariffs on material for this job. And so we've bought, I think, 90% of the material that we need for this job just because of the tariffs and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we drained all of our local suppliers dry of the material that that we use, because we bought everything that they had in stock. So, but yeah, and we had to put the material all over the shop because it's just it was a lot of material.
Yeah. I need to place another material order here for the big job, and I'm afraid what the prices are going to be.
Yeah. So we have that 255-gallon tote outside our shop, and so far we filled it up once a week right now with aluminum.
What does that weigh?
I can tell you what we got for it and what we got per pound, and I can backtrack to weight. So we got $102 and like 50 cents, and we got it 20 cents a pound. So a little over 500 pounds.
Okay.
A week of aluminum shavings. And the material we're making it out of is pretty small. Mm-hmm. It's like a 2-inch by 1-inch by 3/4 inch piece of aluminum, and it's a 93% material removal. So
93%. Okay, so you're removing basically all of it.
Yeah. So we're processing about 500 pounds. We're processing over 500 pounds of small aluminum parts per week, which is pretty cool. It's almost 750 parts a week. I think we're doing, if we're not working Sunday and we're not working we're only working like 9 to 10 hour days, we can do, I think, 650 parts a week. If we work Sunday and if we work 10 to 12 hour days, we can do 750 a week.
Okay.
And at 1,500 a month of the requirement, we can do in 2 weeks what they need in a month.
Okay.
But we're playing catch up right now.
Yeah. For this big job, I can do, well, okay. I should theoretically be able to do like 90 parts a day just on the Tormach. Spending one full day working at the machine. That doesn't include class or anything. The last time I did this job, I averaged 30 parts a day. But that includes like, I was gone for a couple days out of that. There were half days with school. There were just several days that I did not work that got included in that 30 per day average. And I need to start by tomorrow to do it or to finish the job with that 30-day average.
Yep.
But I think I'll be far more efficient this time because I made a lot of scrap last time. And with all of my systems and stuff worked out, even if I do it just on, the one Tormach instead of the 3 VF2s, I should be quite a bit faster.
Oh, one of my new customers, came by the shop to pick up their parts. And it was kind of funny because we got the Ubiquity system, and it automatically locks the door, and it's supposed to unlock when we arrive, but we've been going in the back door, not the front door, and so sometimes it stays locked because we forgot to go through that door, because it'll lock when someone unlock when someone comes through it. And we had our customers showed up to pick up some parts, and they were relatively nice dressed. There's two guys, and they were decently well dressed, and they didn't introduce themselves. They just kind of were standing outside, and I let them in, and they're like, "Hey, we're here with so and so company to pick up some parts." I was like, "Okay," and so I kind of show them to the back where the parts are, and I couldn't think of the right way to ask this, but I was like, "So what do you guys do for the company?" Like,
are you machinists? Are you truck drivers? Are you the CEO?
And basically they were the two owners. And
okay, cool.
And so I got talking to them. They kind of told me the history of their company, which was pretty cool. Their company was founded in the 70s, and both of them started working for the company in the 90s. And then they became partners of the company with the original owner, and then ended up buying out the original owner, buying into the partnership in the early 2000s. And then in the late 2000s, like a couple of years ago, they bought them out fully. So now they're the only two that owned it. And so they just wanted to kind of come by and see our shop. And so we kind of give them a tour. They said that we could come by and look at their shop sometime. They do a lot of stuff in the heat and air industry. And so what they do is they make the equipment that makes heat and air equipment. So heat and air has a lot of piping for the coolants and freons and stuff, and they make a lot of the machines that bend all that piping or form the sheet metal and stuff like that, dies and things. And so that's what we were making. And they told us that they realized that their parts are pretty tight toleranced, and pretty complicated because of that. They're not really complicated parts to machine. They're just the way that they call out some of their tolerances is kind of not as much fun. And so basically they said, they're open to, increasing pricing. They just want to make sure that the quality's good. As they said, we've tried to use a lot of different shops in the area. They have their own machine shop because they struggle to get good parts from other shops. And they said they're willing to spend money if the parts are of good quality. And I way underbid them the first time we did them. So I'm happy to hear that from them. but I want to go see their shop because they got a lot of Akumas, and I'd like to kind of pick their brains and take a look at some Akumas that are working in the field, because that's one of the lathes we're looking at was the Akuma lathe. They had a couple. So
were those the parts that had like a whole bunch of stack tolerances? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So like, that you'd have a couple of things that would be like, okay, they have a 1 thou tolerance here, 1 thou tolerance here, 1 thou tolerance here. And then, that's like, oh, that's not horrible, but all of the tolerances were in Z, and then they'd have parallelism call outs. And then the way that the 1 thou tolerances would stack, they'd have like 3 different levels that you'd have to hit and keep everything parallel. And like, you'd have like an overall thickness, and then between the two, and then between another two. And it's like the tolerance stack up, you had to be better than like 5/10 on all of them to be able to hit the 1 thou tolerance on all of them, or whatever it was. It was annoying.
Would those be doable on a grinder?
No, because they were pocketed.
Were they? Okay. Say at first glance they looked like grinder parts, but I didn't really get to examine them in detail.
No, they were pocketed. Like you could hit a couple of the surfaces with a grinder. But it was a pain. But it was a challenge that I would be happy to take on had I been less stressed and had less work going on at the same time.
Yeah.
So that's really what made it hard, was that we were up against a deadline, and they ended up taking half of the parts that we had quoted for them back and either did them in-house or sent them out to another shop just because we couldn't hit the deadline, which I didn't feel great about that. But they actually had a really good attitude. After they came and saw the shop, they were very impressed, and they're like, hey, stuff happens. Don't worry about it. We're not upset, and we're really happy with the quality of the work that you've given us. And, we'd be happy to send you more work once you kind of slow down a little bit more. And so they want to send us more work, but they want to make sure that we're not busy when they do.
Yeah.
So,
which is never going to happen again. You guys are always going to be busy. You'll just have to kind of
yeah, which kind of plays into the fact of like, if we have somewhat easier work that I can set up and let an employee run after I've gotten everything going, then I can focus on the larger projects without worrying about changing a part out every 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So, or we could do robot automation. But if we do, we've kind of gone back and forth between part loading and pallet loading. And for this job, part loading, if we could get it to work, would be much better, because we wouldn't have to, load up a whole bunch of pallets or have a whole bunch of money tied up in pallets. So,
yeah, that seems like the right thing for this part. I had completely just kind of disregarded part loading. The thought exercise of how I would automate this current big job, it definitely led me to, oh yeah, part loading would make sense for this kind of thing. And if this is the route that I keep going down, then I'm going to have to do part loading.
Yeah.
I have been slowly tinkering away in the background on automation stuff. I started with a couple weeks ago, I made those 3D printed spindle grippers. I haven't actually tested those yet, but that's still kind of my current plan going forwards. And I don't know, I've probably spent 3 or 4 hours a week on it for the last 2 or 3 weeks. I've been working on modifying the Tormach probing routines to be able to do things like checking if parts are in spec without changing the work coordinate system, and being able to export that back into Fusion so I can use that to see if anything weird happened overnight.
Yeah.
I got that almost working, is where I left that off. Needs more troubleshooting, but it's close.
Yeah. Got a question from the Discord for me. Question is, Harrison, your customers seem to be consistently really happy with your quality. What is the difference about your parts that you deliver compared to the customers from other suppliers? Um, so to answer that question, my area has pretty low tech shops in general, so the bar is set pretty low. So that's one thing. But I think what sets my parts apart from most of the other shops is one. I think I've only had with the customer I've been dealing with the longest. I've only had one part that had a quality issue that was our fault, and from that customer, historically, um, their previous best supplier um, would have like 7 to 10 quality reports generated per year on different jobs, and we haven't had a quality report generated for us yet. Like the parts that we ended up um, messing up on, they were actually changing the design, and so it wasn't actually that big of a deal. Um, and so we didn't even get hit with the report. They just said, "Hey, this part was out of spec, but we're changing up the design, so it doesn't matter." And then for the other customers, for our newer ones, um, one we kind of took the Xometry training, which was don't have anything unfinished. And a lot of the suppliers around here, if you order something that's 1 inch thick, they're gonna order a 1 inch material, and they're not gonna face both sides. Versus we always order everything oversized, and we don't have any edge that is saw cut, water jet, uh, raw. Like we make sure everything is 100% finished. Um, and then the biggest thing is that we try to make sure everything's in spec. Like anytime I get prints from a customer, if anything has dimensions that are less than plus or minus 5 thou, I'll go with a highlighter through and highlight it on the print, and then I will check those to make sure that anything that's greater than plus or minus 5, if I can, I will inspect it and make sure that it meets those specifications um, before I send it out, um, to the best of my abilities. And like the one part that we ended up missing, um, I think my calipers were either cockeyed or something, um, because I remember checking that part and it being in spec. But I also, um, quite frankly, when I did that part, I was in a rush and I didn't probably look at it as close as I should have. And it's one that I know is difficult because the way I have to do that part, I have to do it on the 5 axis on the VF. And this was before we had the UMC. And I had to take a cut with it and then rotate it 180 and take a cut. It was inside a groove, and the Z height on the VF is the hardest thing on the 5 axis to get consistent. And I had plus or minus a thou, or no, plus thou minus 0, or minus a thou plus 0, something like that. 1 thou was my tolerance on it. And so basically I had to write a program that would basically take the cut, and then I'd measure it, and then I would adjust it, take another cut, measure it, and just kind of walk it in. And that one I might have overgone, and then because I cut it too far, and then my calipers didn't measure it right. So, anyways, and then I got another question for both of us, AJ. How do you manage internal stresses in materials which tend to have the most stress? Do you want to take this one, or do you want me to start?
Sure, I can start. So the first thing I do is I try to make sure I'm removing either as little or as much material as possible from when I'm purchasing the stock. So either you buy stock that's really, really close to your final size, so you're only taking like 10 thou off either side, or you get it way too thick and you put your part right there on the center line of your material. So, if your part's an 1/8 inch, you buy 3/4 inch or 5/8 material or something like that and put it right in the center. Or you buy stock that's just a little bit thicker on either side. Um, if you're going the thick route, basically you're putting it on the neutral axis. You're getting it away from the skin where there's lots of stresses. If you're going the thin stuff route, those stresses are there, but they're less likely to come into play if you're just removing a little bit of material. Um, the and you asked which ones have the most. The by far the worst for me has always been titanium. Um, Another thing to watch for is how the material is cut. If it is sheared instead of saw cut, my lights just went out. Then that adds a ton of stresses as well. So ask for it to be saw cut if you can.
1018 and some of the stainlesses have the most stress that I've dealt with. 1018 seems to be pretty consistent, whereas the stainless, it depends on if it's hot rolled or cold worked. The cold rolled stuff has a lot more stresses in it. And where I tend to see it the most is in asymmetrical parts between the two sides. In that job that was really stressing me out, it was out of a 1018 cold rolled, and it didn't really matter if I was on center line or not, because the part was, I think, 2.5 inches by 2 rectangle, and then on one end it had uh, basically a whole corner taken out with like a shelf hanging out, and that shelf is what they had the really tight tolerances on. They had it like plus or minus a thou from that shelf to one side, and then plus or minus a thou from that shelf to the other side, and then a parallelism of 1 thou between the outer two surfaces, as well as a 1 thou tolerance between the outer surfaces. And it was down inside a pocket. Um, and in that one, the solution was to basically, I machined everything out, but I left 20 thou on the critical surfaces, and then I came back and walked everything in after it had all moved, and that was the solution for that part.
Yeah, I was about to say the other thing you do is you flip the part a whole lot,
Yeah,
especially with like flat stuff. With flat stuff, I've had some parts, actually some titanium I did the other day. I would just barely face off one side, flip it, barely face off the other side, check my flatness, flip it face. And I think one piece of material I did that 7 times.
Yeah. The other thing that I did on that job, because of the parallelism call out, was not only did I flip it a bunch of times, slowly eating away, but I also would run, anytime I'd flip it over, I'd run a tense indicator across all of the flat surfaces to make sure that after I flipped it, that whenever I set it back down on some parallels, that it was still perfectly flat. And there was a couple times where, a chip would get underneath the parallel. I'd have to break everything down and clean it out, just to make sure that it actually came out good. We got another question. What 2 things do you wish you would have done in your shop sooner? And this is for both of us. What 2 things do you wish you would have done in your shop sooner? Yeah, and I feel like that, like, money has been the limiting constraint, and there's nothing that I would have done sooner without having more money. And so it's like, I don't know if there's anything that I would like have changed the order on. I guess, and this is a double-edged sword. I didn't know what I was doing in the beginning, and so the Tormach was the perfect machine for me. If I went back and did it again, I would, well, if the new 1500 didn't exist when I restarted it, I would probably have gone with a like a mini mill or something, or a VF2. But with that 1500 from Tormach, I would seriously have considered that if it had existed today. Anything else?
Well, while you're thinking, I would say I wish I had gone with a 0 point sooner. That used that used Aroa system I have now, it's so cheap, and like having that, a year or two ago would have made a big difference. Um,
I would agree with that.
oh, I had something else, but I lost it. I can tell you what I wish I had now, and that is a better tool organizational system. I need to, like right now, I have a set of and I'm talking like end mills. I have a set of end mills at the Haas, and I have a set of end mills at the Tormach, and I feel like I always have the wrong tool at the wrong machine, or the wrong collet at the wrong machine, and I need to
Mm-hmm.
just get a new tool cabinet and stick all the tools in one central place at that tool cabinet. That would save me some headaches. And setting up a separate cell for each machine. That is something that, like, um, or I should say, setting up an identical cell for each machine that I have. I think if I had done that earlier when I first got the Haas, back when I had the original Tormach, I would have used the original Tormach a lot more and not been so eager to sell it, which would have helped me grow a lot faster on Xometry. So the identical cell system between the two machines has been huge for me.
If I did it over, the other thing I would do is not have been so helter skelter on Xometry. That really hurt me with Xometry in particular. I basically, if I could fit it on my machine, I didn't really. If I thought I could make money on it, I took it, and it didn't train the algorithm very well.
We have another question from Got
Yeah.
Chips. Even though you guys are influencers, good ones, what advice do you have for people that are looking to start a shop and are driving the dream by someone else's overnight success? He did say that we're good ones. I didn't add that. And overnight success was in quotes.
Yeah. Well, the best thing I've ever heard about being an overnight success is um, people will look at you, or what was it? I think my grandpa was the one that used to say, it took me 20 years to become an overnight success, or something like that. I would say that dedication um, makes things happen a lot faster. So whenever I quit my job, it was sink or swim. There was no middle ground. And so that mentality made it to where I had to dedicate everything I could and give it my all. Versus what I've seen with some of the other individuals, and AJ, you might be able to chime in. When you're doing it as a part time or as a side hustle, that sense of urgency isn't there. And so it's a much slower growth. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a lot safer of a route to do it. In my defense, whenever I did it, I thought it would be a lot easier than it was. So, like, I was very ignorant, which I guess kind of played to my favor. But it was also a lot more stressful because of that.
I strongly recommend not doing what Harrison did. Make sure you have a good cash flow before you leave your job.
Yeah, I didn't have a choice. It was either succeed or die.
I mean, to refer to some of the, or talk about some of the influencer things that you mentioned here, and I think we've talked a bit about in the Discord. The person that was I guess role model is the right word to use for me when I was getting started, was John Grimsmo. Like, he was kind of the one who was selling the dream of having a small shop and having a EDC type product at the time for me. But he was never selling, here is a course on how to become a Xometry partner. And I think the thing that is different is there's a lot of people now who are like, they're not just being a role model. Like Saunders, like, he was always just kind of a role model. And granted, he did have some like tools for people getting started out. You could argue that the NYCNC was very much selling the becoming an entrepreneur thing.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with like Proven Cut. Like it was selling a tool to the people who are getting started, but he never really like, I don't know. I felt like was trying to push people into it. Whereas
Yeah.
now there are, and he was very open and honest and very realistic about everything. Whereas
Yeah.
now there's been some influencers popping up that are, hey, Xometry is the next best thing, and you can, you know, stop what you're
Yeah.
doing right now, buy a machine, take a loan, start Xometry without any experience, and guess what? I'll
Yeah.
sell you a course to help you out. Um, and I just think that's not open. That's not
It's almost, it feels scammy
realistic.
or slimy, because quitting your job and doing it is nothing that should be taken lightly. Even though I probably took it too lightly. Um, and like if I had any advice for anyone, it's one, you know what condition, you know what your scenario is going on in your life better than anyone else. And so while you can look at other people and see their successes, at the end you still need to look at where you're at and look at what your situation is and make sound decisions based on that, and not necessarily listen to people on the internet who don't know your full story tell you what to do. Um, but anyone who does want to do what we're doing, I think anyone can do it. It just takes time and dedication. The amount of people that come to my shop and take a tour and walk around and go, oh wow, this is all really amazing. Who taught you how to do this? Who taught you how to do that? I'm 100% self-taught on all of this. Um, and like in the beginning, we had no money, and I mean, I'm not rich today still. Um, but we it's a snowball that you're rolling down a hill, and over time it gains momentum and gets larger. Um, and how fast you push it down the hill, or um, kind of depends on what is going on in your world and what opportunities you have available to you. Because I've had a lot of opportunities that I have missed, but it's probably a good thing that I didn't get those opportunities, because had I gotten them, I probably would have failed and been in a worse position. And so I have found in my business that um, the best opportunities have pushed me to the breaking point and caused me to stretch and grow, to where when another opportunity comes, I'm able to capture it. And it's a constant pull and tug, and getting pushed to the breaking point where I feel like everything's gonna fall apart around me, and then surviving it, and then being able to take on the next challenge. Um, but one thing that I have going for me that I don't know how much I've mentioned on the podcast is, I have a lot of family support in the background. My wife has been incredibly supportive. My family was very, like my parents and my aunts and uncles, um, that all live in the area. In the beginning, were very very skeptical of what we're doing. But over time, they've seen the potential, and they've all come around and supported the business in one way or another. Um, Whether that is bringing us food, delivering parts, helping cut material on the saw. My dad basically built the shop that we're in his spare time. Um, he built the offices and helped out with a bunch of stuff. And so it hasn't just been me and Weston. We've had a lot of help from the community. And I've even had other shops in the area. I've had, machine shops that are we've built relationships with, and we'll ask them to like water jet parts for us, and they won't charge us for it even though we tell them to. um, just because they're really good people that are helping us succeed. And so while we have been incredibly successful, we've also had a ton of help from the community and family. um, and we're just in a really good area. And then we also have a lot of shops that are older and not embracing technology. And so um, when they come by our shop and they see a 5-axis, running a lot of these older guys, it just blows their mind. Who've been in the trades for so long. So, but I don't know what advice else I could give, because everyone is kind of in a unique scenario. And if I was like in the real estate business, for example, and I was trying to tell you when to buy a house, and you were in a completely different market than me, I could say, $100,000 house is a great value, and then you look around and you go, that might be true, but I can't find a house for less than $1 million. And so it could be a completely different environment from where we're at, and so you might have to have a completely different approach to be successful in that area. Hope that helps. Got another question here. This might be a little off topic, but how are you guys handling retirements, investing accounts? Do you have SEPs, which I'm not really sure what that is? And maybe this is something you don't want to talk about here on the show. I don't mind talking about it. So I've actually started another company that's not really doing anything yet, but I'm trying to get into some real estate, some investing in that area. And then I also have stocks in the stock market. And so I like to call it my three-legged stool. I'm trying to build up stocks in the stock market. I'd like to get into some rental properties. The house that I bought, that I'm living in right now, I bought with the purpose of turning it into a rental house and moving out when I get it paid off. The business is something that I started to be a little bit more self-sufficient, and I specifically gave it the name Precision Ingenuity, and I didn't want to throw my name in it in case I ever wanted to sell it at someday. I wanted to plan for all contingencies. And I wouldn't mind starting a couple more businesses, if I'm honest, because not only do I like being a machinist, but I'm kind of have an entrepreneurial mindset. And if you only have one business, you're not really an entrepreneur, you're a business owner. And so there's a couple other businesses that, like, if I had the cash and time, I would love to start. And I know AJ started about 100 different businesses, so
I explore concepts, I explore ideas, I test them.
So we got one of a different question that I was answering that says, this might be a little bit off topic, but how are you guys handling retirement investment accounts? Do you have SEPs? Which do you know what they mean by SEPs?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't either. And so yeah. Do you have any like investment? I have a 401k from my previous job that I would like to start and putting money back into again as well. I need to go find it though. Yeah.
I have an index fund, Vanguard index fund.
Yeah.
I can't say I've been contributing a lot lately.
Yeah. My family, like my parents and whatnot, historically have not really been putting money towards retirement, and they're working on that now. And so I don't want to find myself in that position. And so I want to diversify and have multiple streams of revenue. That way, if any one or two streams goes down, I still have something. Harrison, do you have certain financial goals you want to hit before you left your day job? Yes. So for me, whenever I quit my job, I wanted to make sure that I had 6 months of savings saved up before I quit. And then I refinanced my house to get it lower, a lower payment. And so I was fortunate in the fact that I was raised to attack debt like crazy. And so I don't have any school debt. When I got married, my wife had car payments. And so I got those paid off within the first year that we were married and attacked that hard. I've never had credit card debt, even though I do use credit cards. And so, like, the only debt that I currently have outside of the business is my house, and I've got that paid down over. I've got over 50% of that paid down from when I bought the house a couple years ago. Um, Back, I think I bought it in 2018, and I'm over halfway paid down. Um, and so like I can't stand debt in my personal life, and so whenever it came time for me to leave, financially, the only thing I had to worry about was my mortgage, utilities, um, and then food. And so I didn't have any. I don't have any kids, and I have a ton of cats. So
Did you see? Apparently, you need the Mary got chips. I happen to know that he has a truck that could use some paying down.
yeah. But I like to, and ever since I've started this, I have not built my savings back up to a 6 month savings. But historically, I like to have 3 months savings at all times, ideally 6 months. And so, um, financial education, regardless of what industry you are in, I think is extremely important, and something that, regardless of what you're doing today, I feel that people can take charge of, and can make the biggest difference overall. Even if you never get into machining, um, or start your own business or whatever.
Yeah. I would not be in business if my overhead wasn't so low. That's like the biggest thing I have going for me is, if I were to stop making parts right now, I think all of the overhead I had, or all of the overhead I have combined, is like $550 a month.
Yeah. The
Other
biggest
than
thing is, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, for the business, other than my mortgage or whatever. But
Yeah. The biggest thing that I try to do financially for my secrets for got chips, um, is that, one, don't spend above your means, and two, and this is something I've tried to drive in with my wife, and thankfully she's been real easy on this. Um, but there's a difference between a need and a want, and as long as you ask yourself that question before you make any purchases in your personal life, is this a need or is this a want? It makes a big difference for what you do. And so like my wife, she'll want to buy something, and she'll want to spend like, or like she'll pop a tire, and she'll go get a tire, and she'll be like, "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. We're spending this money on a tire." I'm like, "Honey, that's fine. I don't care." And then she'll want to go buy, you know, I don't know, some makeup that's like $5 or $10, or I don't know, something, something that's not maybe needed, or maybe that is needed. So let's try something else, like
watch
cat
Harrison try to
toys.
not get himself in trouble.
Yeah, she can't hear me, can she? Like a really expensive cat toy or something. It's like, do we really need that? Do we really need that? And that's when I don't really care if it's something that is actually legitimately needed. If it's legitimately needed, I'm more than willing to spend the money to get something that's worth the investment. Like if it's, if it's a nice vacuum for the house, I would much rather go out and buy a nice vacuum that's going to last than go buy a $10 Walmart vacuum that's going to die in 3 months. So just trying to be smart. Um, what else we got?
I had something on that, but one thing that's killing me right now that I need to get under control is eating out. Because the way school lands, like I wake up, I eat breakfast, I run around all day doing job shop stuff, I go to school, and it's like, oh, I didn't have lunch. So I get lunch on the way to school. And then, some days like I'm still at school now, it's 10. So it's like I just ran and got dinner. Fortunately, I did eat lunch at home today, at least. But I'm easily spending like 50 or $60 a week on food when I'm teaching, and like I need to stop that now.
The first 3 years when we were in the garage shop, we ate out every day because we didn't have a place to eat in the garage shop. And so one of the things that we did whenever we whenever we got the new building is we wanted a kitchen with a refrigerator and a microwave. And we basically keep it fully stocked to where we can eat lunch at the shop every day if we need to. We'll still go out maybe once a week or once every other week. But we usually only go out if A, we're not super busy, and B, we're tired of eating the food in the shop that we have. Um, so that's made it that's made a big difference.
Did you listen to the most recent episode of With Intolerance?
Mm-mm.
So he was saying that him and his business partner, they like have a catering company, basically do meal prep for him, and they'll bring in some like box lunches that they'll
I haven't
just
watched
eat.
or
Like
listened to that one yet.
that is like literally, like that'll be one of the signs in my mind that I have made it. It'll be like I just have food, like I don't have to deal with food anymore. I don't have to think about that. Like if I just didn't have to think about lunches anymore, and I can use like one of those factor services or have someone bring them in, that's like AJ has made it. That is tippy top for me. That's goals. That and not having to mow my lawn. Those are my two signs of success.
I love mowing lawns on a push mower. I hate mowing or on a riding mower. I despise using a push mower. Like,
would you like to commute to Muncie once a week or once a month? Or like twice a year, if I'm being honest.
When I was living at home, my parents had about 5 acres, and I would go mow for a couple hours, and I just put on a set of headphones and just kind of listen to podcasts or music or something. And it was so relaxing. I loved mowing like that. And now that I live in a subdivision, I have a push mower, and it only takes me, 20 to 30 minutes, but I despise every second of it.
Yeah, mowing for us on my riding lawnmower is like a 6-hour kind of thing.
Oh man, that's a lot.
Yeah. Got Chip says he'll have to remove all the credit cards from Amazon and online services. I just got rid of credit cards, so I don't use any credit cards right now, and that was the right choice for us. Me and my wife proved that we are not credit card people, and we do much better without credit card.
Yeah. What's the smallest thing that's made the biggest difference in your shop? Could be small machine upgrades, shop organization tools, or even self-wringing mops.
Water cooler.
There's been so many little things. Water cooler?
I love my water cooler. I got it used on Facebook Marketplace. It was $30. It's the kind that refills from like the wall. I don't have to buy tanks or anything for it. And I opened it up and I found the little like thermostat, and I cranked it all the way down. So now it's like 32-degree water at my beck and call whenever I want it. Filtered.
Yeah. So on the Freaky Climber just said, a good push mower is so nice. You just need to get into making patterns in the yard like lawn striping. This is kind of off topic, but has anyone watched the Lawn Tools on YouTube? So they are a couple guys that I've known since I was a little kid. I've grown up with these guys. Apparently their YouTube channels gotten huge, but he does crazy lawn care stuff, and he's basically a couple houses down from me. That's cool. So like I actually do the lawn tools, like the desk lawn that they do. We 3D print that and take care of that for them, their Etsy shop. We've been doing that since the get-go. But yeah. Anyways,
are you on bamboo printers now? You have been for a while, right?
Yeah. We don't have any Prusa.
I got mine, I don't know, like 2 weeks ago, and I have been loving it. It's the best thing ever. I have 3D printed so few things for the shop and so many more things for my family than I expected. but it has been awesome. I just made a deal with someone on Facebook Marketplace to sell my Prusa, which is kind of sad because I kind of want it, but I don't really need it anymore, and I might as well recoup that while it's still worth something. But
yeah. Yeah, I mean, on that note, I say a 3D printer is one of the best things a machine shop can have especially if you design your own stuff and make it, because like the Gridfinity has been amazing.
Yep.
But like some of the other things that we do, I mean, the more you can sell out your shop and kind of like lay it out in a organized, logical manner, it takes a lot of time and energy, but man, it just makes daily life in the shop so nice. I am bad about this, but keeping your areas nice and clean makes things so nice.
Keeping things compact, putting like making things so you don't have to walk back and forth across your shop constantly.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, I wish I could remember all the different shop improvements we make, but eventually they get absorbed into the daily routine, and I don't remember them as being a shop improvement. It's just how we do things now. And so, like, I'm constantly moving things around, or this is something I use a lot, so I move it to a different area. Um, you every day we try to make a little bit of an improvement, and it just pays dividends in the long run in shop efficiency. Um, Future improvements: lathe, Swiss lathe, 5-axis screw compressor.
Robot.
Robot. We're actually looking at getting another screw compressor, a backup
Really,
one.
a second one?
Because if that goes down, we're hosed.
Yeah.
So, our screw compressor hit 2,000 hours, and so we had the service tech come out and take a look at it, and we got to talking to him, and we can buy the cabinet that the screw compressor came in for less and just pipe it into the existing tank, or plumb it into the existing tank. And I think it would be like $4 or $5 for that, or we can go a little bit smaller and get one for $2 to $3 for like a half the capacity. But we're probably going to do that at some point, just because we can't not have that. Another thing that we need to do is heat and air, or not heat, but air conditioning. So it's getting into the 60s around here, and every day in the shop we're getting over 75 degrees in the shop with a 5-ton unit that can't keep up.
Right, so you have air, it's just not keeping up.
Yeah, it's not keeping up. And so we're going to have to get another AC unit and put it in there, because that one can't keep up. It gets pretty hot in there. Mist collectors, we definitely need some of those. When they were doing the cleaning of the screw compressor, they looked at some of the filters, and they were just covered in like coolant sludge that had been in the air that had gotten sucked through the filtration. And I'm sure that's getting into my lungs, and the quality of the air is pretty bad. And so we need to get some mist collectors on the machines. That's on our list. And then some just shop air cleaners in the ceilings in general, because I do not want to have lung issues later in life. I'd still like to get a Y-axis lathe. What else? I'd like to get RegoFix still too. That's on my list. Why don't screw compressors need a constant load while running? Also, do they always need to be on like that? So, screw compressors, I don't understand the whole load unload thing, because that's what mine does. When it gets up to pressure, it'll run for 5 minutes in an idle state, and I don't really understand it, but I know that they don't like to stop and start constantly. Um, yeah, I'm not an expert on that. Um,
Well, speaking of not being an expert, we have Patreons. And unfortunately, on this computer, I don't have my list ready right now. And my monitor's too small, so I'm not even going to bother trying. But we have a bunch of Patreons. They are super good. They include, but are not limited to, uh, uh, Quoke, My Edmund DDC, Jacob N, Horston Tool, Got Chips, Freaky Climber, Foot Pedal Jones, EJ, Check the Tank, and that's Harrison. Those are just the people who are listening live right now on Discord, and they're participating in the conversation as we have it. I normally thank all of our $10 a month and above Patreons, but I don't have that list right now, so I'm sorry. You can get a refund or something if you really wanted to, but no, please don't. So if you want to join the Patreon, you can do so by clicking the link that's like probably in the description, or just Googling Taps and Patience Patreon. It'll probably show up. Those Patreon members are paying for things like bringing on Jacob M, aforementioned Patreon, to help us out with the podcast. So I talked to him the other day. I'm going to talk to him again tomorrow. He's officially going to start being our quote unquote social media manager. So thank you, Patreons, for supporting us and being able to take some of the load off of us by hoisting it onto other Patreons. And yes, don't worry, we are paying him. Actually, you guys are paying him. So he's gonna take over all of the posting because I am so bad at it, particularly when I get busy. I'm so inconsistent, and he's gonna fix it all and make it all very consistent. So if you see another face around posting on Patreon, it is him. He is doing it for us. Oh yeah, and as ever, Jake Brownson. Thank you, Got Chips. We can't forget Jake Brownson. Yeah, he's been there for so long.
And we appreciate all the Patreons that are listening live and providing us with good topics and questions. So thanks, guys, for hanging out and listening to us. We appreciate that.
All right, one last one. I do need to get going because it's already 10, and I have a drive home that's somewhere between an hour and 2 hours.
Yeah, that's true.
Horston Tool says, favorite go-to tooling brands. I know there are a lot of Haas and Helical, Harvey fans, but any others? I have been reminded of Lakeshore Carbide recently. I switched to one of their chamfer mills on the big production job, and I was having tool life issues due to the way the part was programmed. It was my fault, not necessarily the tool's fault. But I was going through the Haas chamfer mills like, I don't know, one every 100 or 200 parts or something like that. And I switched to an old Lakeshore Carbide tool that I had laying around back. It used to be in my 1100. And I stuck that thing in my 1500 and it ran like 500 parts. No problem at all. So, and it's still going strong. So I've been reminded of Lakeshore Carbide. I used to use them a lot. Then I went to Online Carbide. Then I went to Haas Tools. And now I think I'm about to do another big order with Lakeshore again.
I really want to try some Frasia tools, but all of the reps that I deal with won't sell me them for some reason.
This is why the salesman distributor thingy sucks. And this is why I only buy from people that sell direct to customer.
But I'd like to try some Frasia tools. I've heard good things. But I remember hearing a discussion. I want to say it was on Taps and Patience, where they were talking about, would
That's
you
us.
get a
or Taps and Patience,
or not Taps, not Taps with Intolerance, where they were talking about, would you get good tool holders or good tools, and they kind of went back and forth on that. And I'm kind of in the mindset of having like a really good tool. If you don't have good tool holders, you're kind of not taking advantage of that good tool. And so I'd like to test out I'd like to get some nicer tools, but I kind of want to get my tool holders a little bit nicer before I go too crazy. Because I have noticed a huge consistency difference in my tooling based on their run out. And with the ER collet holders, I'm trying to do a better job of making sure they're within, 5/10 or better of run out. But I don't always do that. and I can notice a huge difference in the quality, in the life of the tool, and in my finishes when things aren't running out very smooth.
Our Patreons are talking about how we put them to sleep.
It's not from my voice, because I'm sure
I'm going to call you guys something more rude next time. Speaking of tools.
All right, guys. Bunch of whiners.
They're not whining, they're all asleep.
I know, right? Oh, but to be fair, a good podcast can put you to sleep sometimes. So I can't deny that I have fallen asleep listening to some good podcasts. Anyways, thanks guys for hanging out. Those that are here live and those that are listening in and watching the recording, we appreciate you guys coming out and hanging out. This has been Harrison with Precision Ingenuity, signing out with AJ from Audacity Micro, and we will try to do this a little bit more consistently. Sorry that we haven't been doing it as consistently as we have in the past, but both of us have been getting pretty busy. So yeah,
Jacob will keep us on track.
Taps and patience, our daily grind. In this machine shop, we'll always find joyous struggles, all intertwined. Taps and patience, one of a kind.